But this one I wrote about my parents. Actually, my father just called me. I talk to my father like once every blue moon, and he called me up today. And he was with my mom for 14 years, and he's with his next wife for 14 years, and now he's single again. And he's like, he started dating online actually, which is bad news, especially in Texas, because he's like, oh, you're from Texas? Well, I don't know, man. He's like, man, I met this girl, and we started going to breakfast together, and she had no teeth. And I'm like, Dad, didn't she not have teeth in her profile? He's like, she wasn't smiling then, but at breakfast she was like souping up her eggs. Oh, and that's all bad, right? And then he's like, you're gonna have to write me one of the poems so I can be deep in front of. I was like, that's kind of creepy, Dad, but I'm see what I can do. But that is right. Can you imagine your dad just like spitting like, hey baby, you know, my son wrote this, but nah, it's not the business. All right, so I wrote this. It's actually more about my mom. What's in my head doesn't really translate well on paper. It's louder, with blue smoke, sounds like a blues song played by a four-fingered band with 6 toes wearing sandals. It's 1978 Tennessee, a dark bar with dark people. The four-fingered man played with the soul already promised to the devil. Money in his pocket already promised to the liquor behind the counter. He played with a skill only desperation could produce. This is the blues. It's what's in my head, but doesn't really translate well on paper. Doesn't really fit into good images kind of like my mother. See, I want to write a poem for her, but all I can muster is to write a poem about her. Words disrespect her. You see, growing up, I obviously never went hungry, while she did. So how can I merely just call her beautiful? To me, that would be like spitting in her face. She's alone now, working retail with the 16-year-olds. No one in her life, no man in her life was ever good enough for her, including her son, maybe even her God, but I'm probably not saying this right. See, what's in my head doesn't really translate well on paper. To capture what's in my head, you would need a canvas of skin, the size of Rhode Island. You would need paint, the color of laughter, and all of us to gather around to discuss the spaces in between the images, because they say that's where art really is. My mom would be there, you'd meet her, you'd love her. She'd be there holding hands with the four-fingered man, the one that she met in Tennessee the year I was born. He would play this blues song so deep and country, she would forget about my father. She would kiss him with so much understanding, he would forget about the liquor. They'd both be too old to have children, so I'd run around the house licking the cake batter bowl in my underwear, remembering what it was like to be a kid again. She'd laugh and she'd put on some Stevie Wonder. I'd take out some wood pencils and beat in tune with the music, scratching up her antique wood furniture. But I wouldn't get a whooping this time. Really, she'd be laughing, she'd throw me some more wood pencils and say, have at it. The four-fingered man would spin her counterclockwise, reversing all the time she spent wishing and regretting, although she'll tell you she never regretted a thing. And when the song was over, he would dip her in this final finale, and he would whisper to her, it was all for this moment, and she would believe him. See, I wish that you guys can see what was in my head. In my head, their history is tattooed on their skin, so you can see what they had to go through but could never really overcome. But my words doesn't really fit well on this paper. And even if I could write it in perfect block lettering, they say you can't believe everything you read. You see, the truth is that my mother sits alone in her apartment in Atlanta, waiting for my call. I don't have the courage to tell her that my writing hasn't saved her yet, nor the courage to, nor the understanding to know that she doesn't care. All right, so.